Happy New Year. Welcome to this week's The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. This is Kevin Riles. I'm excited to be here this week. This week, I'm going to start off the year of building wealth, with answering your questions. I ask people to submit questions to me via email, via social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And so this week, I'm answering your questions so we can build wealth in 2018. Maestro, hit the music, please.
Support for this program comes from the Digital Broadcasting Network, presenting podcasts and web series from everyday people who have an extraordinary passion to make the world a better place.
And welcome back to The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. This is your host, Kevin Riles. Happy New Year, 2018. I am excited to be on this journey with you guys with my podcast. We had some fun last year. Usually we don't try to date these, but I'm just so excited with a new year, new subjects, new ways to listen. For those of you that might be listening to this in your car later on, this is our first foray into Facebook Live. So we're going live Facebook right now. People can see me. They're actually talking to me. I see people watching. I see my classmate. Hey, Katina, how you doing? Shafir. That lives in Florida, from New York. I went to college with, so I'm just I love the instant feedback that Facebook Live gives you. So I wanted to start off, our theme this year is helping you build wealth, right? At my very essence, I'm a teacher, right? At my very essence, I'm a teacher. I do conduct and am a part of real estate practice and commercial real estate practice, but I love to teach. I teach at Prairie View A&M University, teach in the graduate school and the School of Architecture, community and real estate development. I love teaching. And so this podcast, the impetus for this podcast was for me to scratch that teaching itch on a consistent basis. Plus, I look good on camera, right? And Facebook Live is probably people going to ask that. And then I got my bestie, my man 50 grand, my woman 50 grand watching now. So now I got a little nervous. Wavedi Farouk, also known as Yvette Mitchell, is on Facebook Live. So I just feel really good right now. But anyway, long story short, I want to help you build wealth in 2018. That is, I think, one of my callings is to help people, not only to teach people, but teach people things that help them make impacts on their lives. And so in an effort to do that, this first podcast of 2018, I posed a question out on social media, out on email, for you guys to kind of let me know what you were thinking and what questions you have for 2000 to start the year off. And so I was blessed to be able to get some of those answers. Get some of those questions before we tape today. And so that's my plan today. Is I am going to answer some of the questions that I was posed earlier. And I want to thank, for those of you that are listening. I haven't gotten, hopefully Mr. Producer give me my stats here in this month as far as my downloads, but I know for a fact that people are listening to the podcast. They're enjoying the podcast. I'm getting feedback. I'm getting questions. I was out at a function during the holidays, and person that I hadn't seen in a very long time said, I'm really enjoying your podcast, and I didn't even know that they were on my e-blast list. So thank you for allowing me to come into your ears, into your mind, and talk and about things real estate related, and then also life and motivation related. I'm really excited about that. So with that being said, I want to start off with, I put out a question. I said, help, taping a podcast at 1 p.m. today. What real estate questions do you have to start off the year? And I promised everyone that if they asked a question, that I would answer it. And so to that end, here is question number one. I am going to identify you guys. So I didn't tell you that, but I am going to identify you. So Anthony Washington, what's up, Frat? How are you doing? One of my clients. And he asked me, he said, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on finding a good commercial mortgage broker. Commercial mortgage broker. So let me back up for a second and say that residential mortgage brokers essentially don't exist anymore because of the changing of the laws. It used to be and what a mortgage broker is that they typically can find multiple lenders with different programs to basically broker your loan to. In other words, instead of just going to one bank and you only having access to that one bank's programs, a broker can broker those programs across many different banks and find a better program, at least in theory. And so residential mortgage brokers essentially went away with the new laws after 2007, 2008, and most of those are what we call correspondent lenders now. They're basically lending banks money, or they're lending off of a line of credit and selling those loans. But because commercial real estate is still the Wild Wild West, commercial mortgage brokers still do exist. And they actually provide a really good function in that a lot of times in some of my deals, especially I do a lot of multifamily, so apartment complexes primarily. And there are certain banks that don't like apartment complexes. There are certain banks that only like certain types of apartment complexes. And there are certain banks that underwrite differently than other banks. And so having a good commercial mortgage broker on your team as a part of your overall team is very important. So to answer your question, I would tell you that obviously, Anthony, that networking with commercial real estate brokers is very important because usually we have one or two or maybe even more commercial brokers, commercial mortgage brokers that we work with. So that would be my number one answer to your question. My number two answer to your question would be I'm real big on small community banks because they typically don't have as much red tape. It's a relationship, kind of old school banking where there's a relationship. And so a lot of times if a bank cannot do your deal, some of the actual loan officers, commercial loan officers at those banks will have commercial brokers that they've done business with, and they'll refer you out to a broker to go find a deal. So if we can't do that specific deal, then maybe this mortgage broker, commercial mortgage broker, could assist you in doing that. All right. So that's the answer to your question. I appreciate your question. Ms. Taria, my good colleague, paralegal extraordinaire, Taria Simpson, she asked me, someone asked the other day how to become a commercial realtor. What is the major difference between residential and commercial? I could do a whole podcast on just that question, Taria, so that's a very good question, but I will be brief because I have other questions to answer. So once you get a real estate license in the state of Texas or anywhere, there's no specific license for a residential realtor versus a commercial. Once you have the license, you can do any and all. You can do residential and commercial. You can just do residential. You can just do commercial. So first and foremost, the answer to the question would just be get your real estate license. Your license licenses you to practice real estate in the state of Texas in this particular case. Secondarily, if you want to become a commercial real estate broker, I highly recommend that you identify commercial real estate brokers and commercial real estate firms so that you can either approach them for working with them once you get your license or to ask them what their hiring processes are. And even within commercial, there are so many different facets of commercial. You could be a tenant rep broker, which basically means you represent tenants trying to lease space. You could be an investment broker like I am, although I do some tenant rep. And I sell anything that produces income to investors. You can be a land development broker and land broker. You could be a development broker. So there are all kinds of ways you can basically be in commercial real estate. But the first step is to get your license. And then I would say secondarily, the second step would be to identify commercial real estate firms that practice so that you could approach them. You know, there are corporate commercial real estate firms like your Grubb & Ellis, your Cushman & Wakes, your Transwesterns and things of that nature that are much more, when I say corporate, I mean they handle a lot of corporate business, but also their business model is more corporate. And then there are small real estate firms like mine that are kind of mom and pop and especially have very small niches. And so there's firms that run the gamut as to commercial real estate, and you just have to kind of decide where you want to fit. A lot of people get their start in smaller firms like mine, and then they go to big firms, and there are some folks that get their start in larger firms and then decide they want to either strike out on their own or come to a smaller, more boutique shop like myself. So that's the general answer to that question. All right. Ms. Onyx Riles, I like the last name. Yes, I like the last name. Is it better to put a property in a trust or just give it directly to your children or other family members? Good question. Man, That's y'all giving me some podcasts, whole podcast questions. So, is it better to put a property in a trust or just give it directly to your children or other family members? So, the answer to your question is, let me say what I should say, and just especially since we live, I am not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV. So you should consult an attorney with this particular answer. But if I was an attorney, my opinion would be that trust typically, in my opinion, are advanced financial tools for folks that have high income, high net worths. And it is not my opinion that the typical real estate owner, and I say typical, I'm not saying that you don't have a high net worth nor high income, but the typical everyday mom and pop real estate owner, I don't believe trusts are necessary. And in fact, because I have to get my license renewed every year, just took a renewal class as far as continuing education, and there's now a special type of deed. So I think this would be better for your question. The last part of your question was just give it directly to your children or family members. You can do that. Now there is a deed. Deed is the ownership document for your property, right? There's a special type of deed that you can file that upon your death, the property automatically transfers to your whoever you want it to be, to your children in this particular case, right? It's basically a deed, and I'm forgetting the exact name, and I'll do a podcast on this to remember the exact name, but obviously you want to get an attorney to draw that deed up, but it allows you for you to basically not have to go through the probate process, and it directly goes to your whomever you designate as your beneficiary. So why is that important? Because probate can take a while. A lot of us don't probate. And when I say a lot of us, a lot of kinfolk, I'm just going to keep it real on the Facebook Live. I know I have a multitude and a diversity of people, but a lot of kinfolk, we don't do probate. And then they call me to sell a property, and then I say, yeah, I can sell it, but then we have to do what we call heirship affidavits, and then we got to go find mom and them cousin, friend, sister that still has some rights in the property. So this type of deed solves that issue. So I told my real estate attorney, who has been on before, Natasha Gransberry, that I want to have her come back so we can kind of talk about some of those deals, because she's also a probate attorney. And you're welcome, ma'am. You're welcome. All right, Miss Renee Lewis, good to talk to you. How are you doing? Tell the family I said hello. She asked me a couple of questions. She said, what do the new tax laws mean for my annual property taxes? And what about my rental property? Oh, Renee. So originally today, we were supposed to have my CPA on, but he was not, because of schedules and our schedule, his schedule, he was not able to come. And so that's why I came up with the idea of asking these questions. So I'd like to put a little bit of a pin in that question, because we're going to do a whole podcast on that, because everyone has indicated that that is question. I've been getting that question quite a bit, actually, is what the new tax players will do. And because this is live, and because people are going to hear this, and because I usually get confused when he's giving me hand signals, I'm going to stop and tell me what you're asking me. We're going to do that next week. I'm sorry. See, that's all. We need to get a whiteboard, so you can just say the whiteboard. All right. So y'all getting this the real deal Holyfield right here. Y'all getting everything for those people that are listening. So essentially, though, what I did find out is that a lot of the new proposed real estate tax questions that people have, or issues that they have that they've heard. For instance, you cannot deduct anything above $10,000. That is going forward. So if you already have a mortgage under $1 million, then you are grandfathered in as it pertains to deducting your taxes. However, going forward, if you have a mortgage over $750,000, then you will be capped at $10,000 in deduction if you itemize. So, the average price in Houston is basically around $260,000. So for most folks, they're going to still get to deduct what they normally deduct. Now, I live out in Sienna Plantation. My total tax bill is around $13,000, and so I was definitely concerned about that, because we pay good taxes in Sienna, so we can have great place to live and good schools, just in case my Sienna folks are watching this. But damn, we pay some taxes, I'm telling y'all. So with that being said, I'll still be able to deduct that up to whatever I pay. So that's a quick answer to one of the issues. But next week we'll be doing an entire podcast on taxes, the new tax bill, and real estate. So stay tuned, Renee. And then secondly, she said, should I put my rental property under a LLC to protect personal assets from liability? So let me say again, I am not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV. But if I were an attorney, I would say abso-freaking-lutely I would do that, right? Someone, because I know Renee, I think I know the property that she's referring to. If someone goes to that property and falls down the stairs, and right now it is in you and or your husband's name, then that your personal assets are at stake. Now, let me say this. When people sue, I used to be able to say I've never been sued, but last year that ended, and that's a whole nother podcast I'm gonna do on that. By the way, I'm good, I'm innocent and all that kind of stuff, but I'm just letting y'all know. But when people sue, that doesn't preclude them from suing you personally. But if the asset is in the LLC or in some type of business entity, then that is the entity that most folks would sue, and then you can insure that particular entity. But yeah, if it's in your personal name, they can come after your personal assets. They can come after anything that you physically own. And so I highly recommend, highly recommend, if you're owning investment properties, that you should have a LLC or some type of entity to protect your assets. All right. Thank you, Alan Dave. I appreciate you. Thank you, Alan Dave. That's one of my clients, Alan Dave Funeral Homes. That was one of my very first real commercial clients. I helped him find funeral home, and then he married a realtor. So I got cut out the deal, but that's okay. I still love him. That's one of my boys. It's one of my boys. All right. With how many? Let me see. I think Alan has like 4 or 5 locations right now. I mean, he's worldwide. He also owns the largest African American owned funeral home in Louisiana now. So this brother, I remember when he had just one little place. Now he's blowing up, and I won't charge you for that advertisement, but I am looking for sponsors this year, Alan. I am looking for sponsors. Just thought I'd throw that out there. All right. So Ms. Donna, Prairie View's finest. Reputable contractors, inspectors. Man, where do you find them? I'll be honest with you. You know what I've been doing? And I'm in the business and I know them. I've been using Angie's List, and I have not had one problem. And I highly recommend Angie's List or some type of service where you can see ratings and see people, rate contractors. So I'm having some work done right now at my house, and I found that contractor via Angie's List. So that's what I tell people now. And here's the other reason I tell it. It's inevitable. I'll find a great contractor. They do great work for me. They do great work for a couple of my clients. And if for whatever reason on the 5th or 6th referral, something happened with that referral and that contractor, and then I feel responsible. So I am out of the business of referring unless we are blood relatives. So now I'm going to just start sending people to like a list, all right? Start sending people to a list. All right. Ms. Collins, she said, I heard Chimney Rock would be expanded from FM 2234 to Highway 6. Are there plans for the residential development in that area? Ms. Collins coming with the planning questions, but guess what? I'm on the tax reinvestment zone board that covers that area, so I can answer that question, and the answer is yes, there will eventually be additional development. I can't tell you if it's most likely would be residential, but there are plans to extend Chimney Rock all the way through to Highway 6. In fact, there's basically, and I want to say it's maybe a 2-mile, 3-mile distance where they could connect now. The issue is that there's no infrastructure. In order to build any type of structure, I need a place to get my water and I need a place to flush my toilet. So sewer and water are important. Of course, I need electricity as well. Out of those 3, sewer is the most expensive for most developers to do. And so the Tax Reinvestment Zone Board that I sit on, Tax TERS 25, which is the Fort Bend Hiram Clark, TERS is basically a fund that allows developers possibly to be reimbursed for developing the infrastructure necessary for development. So I can tell you that area will eventually be developed, and most likely, in my real estate development hat opinion, that residential is the most likely for that. All right. So that answers. Man, I got a good little crowd. Look at Will Norwood, Morehouse Finest. I see you. I see you, Angelita. I see you. Man, this is so, I like, the feedback right here. Y'all want to see come on, Mr. Producer? No, he's like, no, okay. Here we go. All right, how do I know when it's a good time to refinance? Good question, Miss Rosalind Ardoin Powers, my CAU Willow Ridge buddy, my ride home back from Atlanta. Back in the day, we used to ride home with the rest of the posse from Houston. And you're married to a good man, Eric Powers. He's an Omega, but other than that, he is awesome. So how do I know when it's good time to refinance? Typically, the rule of thumb is a 2-point drop or a change in term. So if your interest rate right now, say, is in the 6s, then and rates right now are basically in the 4s, then you should consider it. And or if you're thinking about changing your term, in other words, you originally signed up for a 30-year mortgage, you now want to pay it off a little faster, and you want to be forced to do that instead of having to pay it off early, by adding extra to the principal. So you might want to go from a 30 to a 20, or 30 to a 15, 30 to a 25. And so those are usually the reasons that you look at refinancing. All right, Miss June Dietrich. Miss June Dietrich, my Palacios near Bay City and Centerpoint and all the folks that I know. Anyway, long story short, I'm giving everybody's resume. They're like, hey, man, don't tell all my business. So I'm purchasing a home, possibly at a beach, which will eventually be my retirement home. But until then, can I use it for rental property? I'm going to stop right there and say the simple answer to that is yes, it's yours. You can do whatever you want to do it. It will be listed as my primary residence since I rent somewhere else in Houston. This may be simple for some, but I'm trying to find out the rules. The rules are you can do whatever. Once you own it, you can do whatever you want to. Now, if you're talking about how should you purchase it, would you purchase it with a purchase money loan or an investment money loan? If you plan it on, in my opinion, if you plan on it being your primary residence at some point in time, then I would tell you to use purchase money loan. In other words, your down payment would be lower than if you said I was buying it as an investment property. However, let me also say I am not a loan officer. You should talk to your loan officer, but that's what I would do. I'm just letting you, wink, wink. That's what I would do. All right. Will Norwood, top 3 things to consider before investing in real estate. Will, that sounds such like a Morehouse question. I'm just going to throw that out there since I know you. So top 3 things to consider. What I would tell you is, am I ready to be a landlord? And this is not in no particular order. Depending on the type of real estate you want to invest in. I do more commercial, but even then you are ultimately a landlord. I would also tell you that what is my budget? What do I have available to invest? On residential investment properties, typically your down payment requirement is anywhere from 20 to 25% down. And so unless you're going to partner with someone, even if you take $150,000 home, that's $60,000 to $70,000 I'm sorry, 60 to 70. That's half. It's $30,000 to $45,000 that you would have to invest in a property. So do I have the budget to do it? And then how do I want to invest? Well, how and what do I want to invest in? How, meaning do I want to partner? So that instead of having to come up with all that money on my own, I have some people I'm investing with. And then what do I want to invest in? Single family homes, multifamily homes, retail. Do I want to there's some folks out there doing hard money. They're the lender. They become the lenders to folks that are doing real estate. So do I just want to buy notes? There are all kinds of ways you can get into real estate investment without having to necessarily just buy homes. All right. And then Will also asked, Will, you being greedy, man, with 2 questions, but that's okay. I'll go ahead and answer. What was my biggest real estate mistake, and what did I learn from it? Oh, brother. You know what? I'm going to put a pin in it because that's a good podcast idea. But I will tell you that it has to deal with a couple things. This is a teaser. I'm going to tease it. So in the coming weeks, biggest real estate mistakes. It's a teaser. It has to do with water, ocean, Galveston, and insurance. Huh? Yeah, I'm telling you. It's word association with that. Word association with that. So I'm going to tease it, but I will actually do a whole, so Will, since you were greedy, I'm going to give you a whole podcast on on everything. So I just got the 5-minute notice from Mr. Producer. Hope y'all are enjoying this. Thank y'all for the feedback. I appreciate it, everyone that's watching. And Mr. Norwood, as he just said, thank you. You're welcome for the idea. That sounds like Will Norwood. Yes, it does. Don't follow him on Facebook, by the way. And so one of my, on Instagram, I'm going to hit these Instagram questions real quick. One of the questions I was asked was, can you wholesale commercial properties? And this comes from Your Real Estate Source on Instagram. Can you wholesale real estate properties? The answer to that question is absolutely. And for those of you that don't know, wholesaling property is you go out, you find a property, you get it under contract, and instead of you buying it, you turn around and go find another investor that's willing to buy it at a little bit higher rate than you have, and that's called a wholesale deal. You just wholesaled, you got something for a lower price, you turned around and assigned that contract to someone else. And you can do any type of land, commercial, any type of property wholesale, as long as you have the capable people on the as long as you lock up the deal. That's always the most important thing. And then secondarily, as long as you have a buyer on the other end, you absolutely can. You charge an assignment fee just like you would do on residential property. So absolutely you can do that. All right. Let me see. What do we have here? Miss Dion, what's going on, Dion? Miss Dion Stoner from Willery. So what's the best way to pay off my home off sooner? What's the best way to pay off my home sooner? Dion, only way to pay off your home sooner is hit the lotto. I'm joking. But by the way, did y'all see what, 500,000? It was like $1 billion in lotto money, like the other day, and somebody won it, right? Man. So the best way to pay off your mortgage is to apply additional principal payments every month. The rule of thumb on a 30-year mortgage is that if you pay an additional payment, 1 month's payment per year to so you make 12 payments plus the 13th payment towards principal, that you'll pay off a 30-year mortgage. I think it's like in 22 or 23 years. So if you can do that math and use an amortization chart, you could actually get even quicker than that. I've known people to pay them off in 10 years, 30-year mortgages in 10 years, but they're really hitting that principal. If you're going to do that, I suggest that if you pay your mortgage on a monthly basis electronically, that you make sure that you put the number in the principal box that you're going to add to principal, or send a separate check in the memo section, put principal, so that it is, and make sure that your mortgage company is applying to the principal. But essentially, just really beating down that principal over time is the answer to that question. Hotline Music Biz on Instagram, who I know TSU's finest and works at TSU, does all the promotions and the Greek life and the whole nine, says the easiest, safest, fastest FSBO process. Now, I'm a real estate broker. You want me to tell you how to sell your own house? Nah, son. Nah. No. So I would not ever do that. But are there for folks out there that if you really want to try to sell your own home, and for every realtor watching, I noticed Lisa, my realtor friend, she just got on, so she probably like, why are you giving away the secret jewels? Don't give away the jewels. But if you really want to try to sell your own home, there are plenty of resources on the internet to tell you do that. I just highly, really don't recommend it, right? I really don't recommend it. Of course, I'm biased. I'm a real estate broker, but what we do is not easy. And a lot of people think we put a sign out in front of a yard or in front of a property, we get a call, and then we're sitting at closing with a big commission check. Like, nothing happens in between that. And I can tell you now, there's a deal right now that I'm gonna do a whole podcast on when it closes, because I need it to close. God, just put your hands on this deal. But I'm gonna do a whole podcast on just what happened in the background, right? And why I feel like I'm rightly compensated for this. And this is a large deal, very large deal. But I'm rightly compensated. Every dollar that I make on this deal, I am earning it every day. Every day. All right? So I said I would answer that, but I'm telling you now that I just would not do that. So this was fun. This is fun. This was my first podcast of 2018. I'm answering your questions. Next week, we will have our tax expert on. I'm calling that into existence. Hopefully, schedules will work out. I want to wish you wealth and success in 2018 and continue to listen to The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Rouse. And please, please, please tell your friends about it. Go to kevinrouse.com to sign up to get my podcast and watch the video. Who would not want to watch this face? All right, guys, I'll see y'all later. See you next week. Hey, thanks for listening as always. Do you have questions about any of the topics I'm talking about? If you have questions, let me know. Email me at kevin@kevinrouse.com. Again, that's kevin@kevinrouse.com. I'm going to do a podcast just on the questions that you guys are sending me. So feel free to send them to me. Again, that's kevin@kevinrouse.com.